Marko, when you started this business with Genesis, most people didn't even know what Bitcoin was. What is it that you saw that then inspired you to go and build infrastructure all around it?
We started with Bitcoin mining really early, basically back in 2012, 2013. So it took me a few days to really understand. During lunchtime, during coffee breaks, I was talking about Bitcoin.
Explain for the audience the basics of crypto mining.
Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. Decentralization is very, very important. However, there is a catch. And the catch is it's very complicated and decentralized system to reach consensus, to ensure that all the participants, thousands of computer nodes, agree on the same thing. And that is actually kind of the genius of the inventor of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto.
So our next speaker is someone who does not often go on any public stage. So we are very privileged to have him. And this man co-founded a crypto mining behemoth in 2013 when most people thought he was absolutely mad. And he has a PhD in physics, was an investment banker before falling down this rabbit hole. Super excited to welcome up to the stage Marko. So Marko Krohn, if you wouldn't mind joining us today. We are not going to expect everyone in this audience to be deep experts in crypto, but there is a lot that we can learn as far as early signals go. So Marko, and also if I could just have the audience quiet down in the back, that'd be great. Thank you. Marko, when you started this business with Genesis, most people didn't even know what Bitcoin was or what crypto was and why it mattered for the world. What is it that you saw that then inspired you to go and build infrastructure all around it?
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you for the introduction. We started with Bitcoin mining really early, basically back in 2012, 2013. And my way into Bitcoin was not a straight line. It was not kind of like an easy access. Because in the beginning, when I read about Bitcoin in a computer magazine, I thought this is a crazy idea, because this is kind of like an anonymous guy creates a virtual currency without any backing that can be printed on your computer. And when I read this, I thought this is a joke. This is a foolish idea. This cannot work, because in my world, I thought currency has to be backed by a state. This is how I grew up, right? All the currencies that I'm aware of, US dollar, euro, etc., they are issued by a government. So how is it possible that someone just declares he has something virtual consisting of zeros and ones, not backed by anything, and declares this as money? That sounded crazy to me. So it took me a few days to really understand the concept.
A few days? It took you days, okay. It took me months, but cool.
Yeah, I probably was lucky that I made a lot of mistakes before, and then I kind of like challenged my assumptions, read more about it, and then I really fell down into this rabbit hole. And I think when I became a little bit this guy that is in the morning, during lunchtime, during coffee breaks, is talking about Bitcoin, and probably lost a lot of friends and annoyed some more people. But in the end, I also kind of like, some people actually kind of like bought Bitcoin. They were as crazy as me and said like, this is a great idea. And actually it were the people that had a certain, let's say, distrust in the government already, that were kind of like gold bugs, invested in gold, and then thought like, okay, currency doesn't have to be run or doesn't have to be issued by the government. And if you think about it, it's actually not a good idea to centralize the control.
And so maybe explain for the audience the basics of crypto mining, because understanding what that infrastructure is, why it's important, will also help them understand other infrastructure plays.
Yeah, okay, this is, I think we need an extra hour if we want to really dive into the details.
You're explaining it to your 5-year-old niece.
The interesting thing here, and I mentioned that, is that Bitcoin is a decentralized currency, and that is for me very, very important to stress this point. The some people think it's a digital currency, but that is not anything which is new. The US dollar is 98% digital as well. Same for the euro. Bitcoin is decentralized, means you don't have a central authority anymore that is in control of the money supply and can remove you from the system. Decentralization is very, very important. However, there is a catch. And the catch is it's very complicated and decentralized system to reach consensus, to ensure that all the participants, thousands of computer nodes, agree on the same thing. And that is actually kind of the genius of the inventor of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, who has solved this very long-standing problem in computer science. And one of these things that is needed for that is mining. That is, maybe you have heard the word proof of work. Yeah, this is kind of like you basically do some sort of like relatively useless task, but you can prove to the outside world that you did a tremendous amount of work. So you have kind of like these days you have like these massive data warehouses with hundreds of megawatts of very specialized equipment that, and the whole purpose of that is to secure the Bitcoin network. That is kind of like in a nutshell Bitcoin mining.
You've been in the space through all of the booms and all of the busts. What is your feedback for the investors in the room, especially those that are looking at longer term bets and plays that don't seem very obvious to start?
Yeah, maybe a little story. When I started with Bitcoin in 2011, Bitcoin was trading at $10. And of course, people say like, wow, that's amazing, Marko. Now it's over $100,000, so you made a 10,000x. But this road was not a straight line. You don't usually go from 10 to 100,000 in a normal curve. So 2 months after I bought Bitcoin for $10, Bitcoin dropped to $2. So I lost 80%. And in addition, the news at that point where Bitcoin is dead was a nice idea, but it didn't work out. So that is kind of a little bit of a challenge. The other challenge, by the way, is if things are going up again. So when Bitcoin went to $20, my friends and my family, of course, everyone knew I have some Bitcoins. They said like, Marko, 100% profit, sell everything. And then to resist, because you have a conviction. You have a conviction that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general are an innovation that is, let's say, one of the biggest innovations probably after the internet.
So there's a lot here around conviction. Now, when you look outside of the crypto markets, you're spending a lot of time in the AI space, and there are plenty of parallels that maybe aren't that obvious from the outset. What piece of the AI world has you excited?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I started to spend a lot of time on AI. That's not because I think that blockchain is at a dead end or so. Quite the contrary. I'm 100% sure the cryptocurrency space, decentralized systems will continue to evolve, and this is a market that will certainly go 10x higher. And that is, for me, very obvious because Bitcoin at the moment has a market cap of about 2 trillion. Gold is around 25 trillion, and arguably Bitcoin has better properties as money. So I would say, like, in Ethereum, there was smart contracts. There was so much going on in this space, so I would be very, very surprised if this is not going up at least another 10x over the next few years, long term. Now, for your question is like, what is so important and special about AI? Is if you see what is going on in this space, I realized this is not a 10x, this is a 1000x. The impact that AI potentially can have on all of our lives and all on our investments, on everything, is like 1,000 times bigger than blockchain. It's absolutely massive. And I started actually to realize that, if I may tell the story, it was not the ChatGPT moment in 2022. I started realizing that something is going on around 2015, 2016. When AlphaGo made it kind of like made a public appearance. So AlphaGo is a system, a computer system that plays Go, which is kind of like the equivalent of, it's kind of called the Asian chess, but the complexity is so much bigger than chess that it was an unsolved problem for a very, very long time. And people always say like, computer systems will need another 10 years or longer to play on the level of a professional. And then came AlphaGo. AlphaGo beat the European champion easily. And then 6 months later, it was playing against the world's best player at that time, Lee Sedol in South Korea. And everyone was actually expecting that Lee Sedol will win based on the previous matches, where AlphaGo was pretty good, it was amazing, but it was not on the level of Asian masters yet. But these 6 months of reinforcement learning, of improving the system, were sufficient to bring the system on a whole new level. And not only were AlphaGo winning 4-1 against Lee Sedol, there was a second game, Move 37, which is very famous by now, where the engine invented a new move. It played, and I've watched this live back in the days, it played a stone in the 5th line, which was super, super unusual. So all the commenters of the game said like, okay, the system is making a mistake here. No human would ever play a stone there. But 50 moves later, it turned out this very move was changing the whole game and was winning the game for AlphaGo. And this completely changed the strategy of how Go works. And one last thing there. After AlphaGo was winning, they built a new system called Alpha Master and then another one called AlphaZero. AlphaZero was a system built without any input on any human knowledge. And this system, AlphaZero, was winning 100-0 easily against the old version. My point is, we came within 2 to 3 years, we came from a situation where it was said, this game is way too complicated for computers to play it. 3 years later, we were in a situation that we don't even understand what is going on anymore. The gap between the machine and the human was now like over 1,000 illopoints, and some of these moves we did not even understand. And this is what I'm seeing right now. For us humans, it's always very difficult to understand exponential growth and exponential processes. We've seen with large language models now how fast these are evolving, how good they are, and we are coming now, I think, kind of in a situation, sorry for the long answer, but where we say like, okay, in some areas this is not just on par with us humans, it's far beyond our capabilities.
So that was your AlphaGo moment. Now, for the investors in the room, what is the equivalent infrastructure picks and shovels play in the AI space that you're paying attention to that's comparable to what Genesis was to the crypto world in the original days?
Yeah, it's Bitcoin mining as its core is an electricity and energy game. You build huge data centers with lots of electricity, and you do this, let's say, useless computations. Bitcoin mining, you don't need high redundancy, you don't need a high uptime. It can be very, very simple systems. Everything has to be extremely cost efficient. AI data centers are built in a different way. You have 99% uptime. You don't want kind of like during your training session that the whole data center crashes. So you have like very high uptime, but the electricity demands are equally high. So there's like data centers, and we know that kind of like the sites that investors are looking for, ideally like hundreds of megawatts. There's currently in the US 10 projects underway where they want to build a 1 gigawatt data center. The projection of Eric Schmidt from a former CEO of Google was that within the next 2 to 3 years, the demand will be in the US alone 29 gigawatts, and until 2030, 70 gigawatts of additional electricity. So these are massive, massive infrastructure games.
And these are a lot of the infrastructure gaps that we're not seeing enough capital flowing into, and we need to fund that in order to have more at the application layer. The question that I think you're uniquely positioned to answer is around the need for decentralization. we understand decentralization in the context of crypto and Web3, that's a core tenet, but we don't hear as much discussion around it on the AI side of things. So quick rapid fire response on decentralization and AI.
Yeah, that's a big question. Look, at the moment, I would say there is a healthy competition between proprietary models from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, and some open source versions. Yeah, DeepSeek, there is the Llama versions from Meta, and so on. And actually, kind of this gap historically now was getting closer and closer. We can't really see kind of like where this is heading. I think kind of like there was a famous paper by a Google engineer saying we don't have moat. I think they have some moat because they can access information that other competitors and open source competitors will have a harder time. So they can access books and they can have arrangements with newspapers, etc., to train their models. So I think there's a certain advantage. But the open source community and these open models, this is moving very fast, and this is very exciting.
All right, so long live decentralization. With that, thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's rare to get you out on a stage, so a quick round of applause for Marko. And I'll welcome Michael back up to the stage.